They didn't insult you by accident. They didn't shame you casually. And they didn't expect resistance. They expected a reaction. Because humiliation is not an emotion. It is a public execution. Every time someone shames you in front of others, they are not attacking your words, your behavior, or your mistake. They are attacking your position. And the moment you explain yourself, the moment you defend, the moment you rush to prove innocence, you lose. Not because you were wrong, but because you accepted their frame. Most people don't understand this. They believe humiliation is something you feel. Embarrassment, anger, shame, fear. That is the first lie. Humiliation is something that happens socially, not emotionally. It is a performance, a ritual, a power move executed in front of witnesses. And the crowd matters more than the attacker. That is why people who try to clear their name always look weaker after. That is why the calm person, the silent one, always wins without speaking. Because power does not argue. Power does not explain. Power does not rush. Power lets silence do the violence. Think about it. Why does a single insult hurt more when others are watching? Why does a comment that would mean nothing in private feel devastating in public? Why does your mind panic, not about the insult, but about how you look? Because your nervous system understands something your logic doesn't. You are not being insulted. You are being lowered. And every reaction you give, anger, defense, jokes, explanations, confirms the execution. This is why shame is such a primitive weapon. It hijacks your need for belonging, your addiction to approval, your fear of social exile. And the people who use it well, they don't need strength. They don't need intelligence. They only need you to react. That is why the most dangerous response is not aggression. It is nothing. Silence is not passive. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a psychological void, and humans are terrified of voids. When you do not respond, the discomfort does not disappear. It moves. From you to them, from the target to the attacker, from the accused to the performer who now has no script. This is the first truth this book will burn into your mind. The one who reacts loses the frame. The one who controls the frame controls reality. Most people never learn this because they are addicted to being understood. They crave validation more than authority. They would rather explain themselves than command respect. That addiction is why humiliation works. But that ends here. Because this book is not about confidence. It is not about positivity. And it is definitely not about being nice. This book is about punishing humiliation without becoming loud, about destroying social attacks without becoming aggressive, about winning without explaining yourself. In the chapters ahead, you will learn why shame is a performance and how to break the performance without words, why defending yourself is the fastest way to lose status, why silence creates more fear than insults ever could, how to flip the psychological frame so the attacker becomes the unstable one, how to win the audience without addressing the attacker, how to erase people socially without looking hostile, how to build an internal fortress so no insult ever lands again, and how to deliver surgical counterattacks only when silence is no longer enough. This is not a theory. This is not motivation. This is social combat psychology. Used correctly, these principles will make you untouchable, not because people will like you, but because they will hesitate. And hesitation is power. If you stay with this book, you will never again rush to defend yourself. You will never again explain your worth. You will never again beg to be understood. You will learn when to stay silent, when to disappear, when to look and not blink, and when to speak once and end the conversation forever. This is not about becoming cruel. It is about becoming unshameable. And if something inside you already knows this matters, if you're tired of replaying conversations in your head, if you're done feeling smaller after public moments, if you're ready to stop reacting and start commanding, then you already belong here. Stay with us. Not because we asked, but because people who understand power recognize it when they hear it. Chapter 1. Shame is social execution. Shame is not an emotion you feel. It is a sentence passed in public, Most people misunderstand shame because they experience it internally, a rush of heat, a tightening chest, the urge to explain or escape. They assume the pain comes from what was said. It doesn't. The pain comes from what was witnessed. Shame is a social weapon designed to lower your status in front of others. It is not about the truth. It is not about morality. It is not even about the insult itself. It is about position. When someone shames you publicly, they are not trying to correct you. They are not seeking understanding. They are performing an execution, one that only works if you participate. That participation usually comes in one of three forms. You defend yourself. You explain yourself. You emotionally react. All three mean the same thing psychologically. I accept your authority to judge me. The moment you accept that authority, the execution is complete. This is why shame feels different in private versus public. The same words spoken alone barely register. But add an audience, even a small one, and the nervous system reacts as if survival is threatened, because socially, it is. Humans evolved to depend on group inclusion. Status meant access to protection, resources, and mates. To be lowered publicly was to be endangered. That ancient wiring is still active. Modern shaming exploits that instinct. This is why people panic when embarrassed, why they rush to explain. Why do they apologize even when innocent? Why do they overtalk? Why do they try to regain approval? Shame is not defeated by strength. It is defeated by non-participation. Here is the part that most people never understand. Shame only exists if you play your assigned role. Every shaming attempt assigns roles instantly. The attacker becomes the judge. You become the defendant. The audience becomes the jury. The words don't matter nearly as much as the roles, and the fastest way to lose power is to accept the role of the defendant. The moment you say, "Let me explain," you have already lost, because judges do not explain themselves. They observe. This is why silence is so destabilizing. Silence breaks the ritual. When you do not respond, the script collapses. The attacker expects a reaction. Anger, embarrassment, defense. That reaction confirms their power, but silence removes confirmation. The psychological pressure does not disappear. It reverses direction. Now the attacker feels exposed. Now the audience feels awkward. Now the silence becomes a spotlight. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with unresolved social moments. When there is no reaction, no closure, no emotional payoff, the brain scrambles to make sense of it. And it usually concludes one thing: you didn't win. This is why people who stay silent after being insulted are remembered as powerful, even if they said nothing clever. Because power is not cleverness. Power is frame control. Defending yourself is not neutral behavior. It is submissive behavior. It signals that your identity is fragile and needs protection. It tells the room that the attacker has the right to evaluate you. Silence, on the other hand, signals that the evaluation is irrelevant, and irrelevance is lethal to shame. This is why the opposite of shame is not pride. It is indifference. Indifference is not emotional numbness. It is emotional sovereignty. It says, "Your judgment does not reach me. Your words do not define me. You are not worth my response." This is deeply unsettling to people who shame others for power, because shame-based individuals depend on reaction. Without it, they feel invisible, and invisibility terrifies them. This is also why humiliation often escalates when ignored. The attacker may repeat the insult louder, add sarcasm, or push harder. That escalation is not strength. I panic. They are trying to recover the frame they failed to establish. And every second you remain calm, quiet, and grounded, the imbalance grows. The audience senses it. Humans instinctively side with the person who appears least emotionally affected. Calm signals control. Control signals authority. This is why shame is described here as social execution. It follows the same structure: a public accusation, a demand for reaction, a symbolic lowering. And like any execution, it only works if the victim cooperates. But what happens when you refuse? That question leads directly to the next level of understanding and the next chapter, because silence alone is powerful, but silence used correctly becomes a weapon. In the next chapter, you will learn how silence creates a psychological vacuum so intense that the attacker collapses into it. You will understand why doing nothing is not passive, it is aggressive at a higher level. And you will learn how to stand still, say nothing, and let the situation destroy itself. Because once you understand that shame is a performance, you stop acting, and the execution fails. Chapter 2. Reaction is defeat. The moment you react, you have already lost more than the argument. You have surrendered control of the frame. Most people believe reaction is strength. They think responding quickly, explaining themselves, defending their image, or firing back shows confidence. In reality, reaction is submission. Why? Because reaction means the other person successfully forced movement out of you. When someone shames you, insults you, mocks you, or provokes you in public, they are not trying to communicate. They are testing one thing only: can I control this person's emotional state? If you react, the answer becomes yes. Reaction proves three things at once. You accepted their frame, you felt the hit, you rushed to repair your image. That combination is psychological defeat. Shame does not work unless the target reacts. An insult without reaction dies immediately. It has no oxygen, no audience payoff, no confirmation. That is why manipulators push harder when you stay calm. They are desperate for proof that they matter. Reaction is the currency they are trying to steal, and most people hand it over willingly. Why the human brain reacts automatically? Reaction is not weakness, it is programming. From childhood, humans are trained to react instantly to social threats. Explain yourself, apologize, justify, correct misunderstandings. We are taught that silence equals guilt, that not responding looks bad, that clearing things up protects our reputation. This conditioning creates a fatal reflex. The reflex says, if someone challenges me publicly, I must respond immediately. But public shaming is not a search for truth. It is a performance, and every performance needs participation. The moment you react, you become a co-actor in their play. They set the stage, you stepped into it. Reaction locks you into their reality. When you react, you accept the assumption behind the attack. If someone says, "You're insecure," and you respond, "I'm not insecure," you have already lost. Why? Because you accepted that your internal state is now up for public debate. You agreed to defend something that never needed defending. Reaction traps you inside their narrative. Now you are no longer a sovereign individual. You are a defendant. And defendants never control the courtroom. The power shift happens instantly. Watch public confrontations carefully. The person who reacts, raises their voice, speeds up speech, over-explains, looks emotionally invested. The person who stays calm, speaks less, moves slower, maintains neutral posture, appears detached. The audience always follows calmly. Not because calm is moral, but because calm signals power. Reaction signals instability. Even if your words are logically correct, your emotional urgency betrays you. Humans don't judge truth by content. They judge truth by composure. Reaction feeds the predator. Public shamers are predators of attention. They provoke for one reason: to extract emotional energy. Your reaction gives them validation, entertainment, status, momentum. That is why they escalate when you argue. That is why they smirk when you explain. That is why they relax when you lose control. Reaction is nourishment. No reaction is starvation. Why silence feels uncomfortable but works? Silence feels uncomfortable because it breaks the expected script. Social interactions run on patterns: attack, defense, insult, response, accusation, explanation. When you remove your line from the script, the entire structure collapses. The attacker suddenly has to fill the silence, justify their behavior, manage the audience's discomfort. This reversal is devastating. The one who attacked now looks unstable. The one who stayed silent looks composed. Silence transfers pressure. Reaction makes you predictable. Predictability is a weakness in social warfare. If people know what insults trigger you, what accusations force explanations, what topics make you defensive, they own you. Reaction exposes your buttons. Silence hides them. The person who does not react becomes unreadable, and unreadable people are feared. Reaction is about ego, not strength. Most reactions are driven by ego panic. The ego whispers, "They can't think this about me. I must fix this now. I need to correct the image." But power does not come from image repair. Power comes from image irrelevance. When you stop needing to be understood, approved, or validated, reaction loses its grip. This is not apathy. This is sovereignty. The turning point. At some point, you must make a decision. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be untouchable? Because reaction may feel righteous, but it always costs authority. The strongest individuals do not rush to defend themselves. They let time, silence, and consistency do the work. They understand something most people never learn. You don't defeat shame by fighting it. You defeat shame by refusing to play. And that refusal begins with one discipline: no reaction. In the next chapter, we will go deeper, not into silence as absence, but into silence as an active psychological weapon. A method so unsettling that it forces attackers to collapse under their own pressure. The void. And once you understand it, you will never see silence the same way again. Chapter 3. The void technique. Silence as weapon. Silence is not the absence of response. Silence is the removal of oxygen. Most people misunderstand silence. They believe silence is passive, weak, or avoidant. In reality, silence, when used correctly, is psychological suffocation. The void technique is not about saying nothing because you are afraid. It is about saying nothing because you have nothing to prove. And that difference changes everything. What the void really is, the void is not quiet. The void is unresolved tension. When someone attacks you publicly, the human brain expects a pattern: attack, reaction, resolution. When you refuse to react, you interrupt the pattern. The mind cannot tolerate unfinished loops. Silence creates a loop with no closure. That loop becomes mental pressure. The attacker feels it first, then the audience feels it, and suddenly everyone is uncomfortable, except you. That is the void. Why silence feels aggressive. True silence feels aggressive because it forces reflection. When you speak, you give direction. When you explain, you guide interpretation. When you react, you relieve tension. Silence does none of that. Silence forces the other person to sit with their words, their intentions, their insecurity. They are left alone with themselves. In public, this is why silence often provokes escalation. The attacker talks more. It gets louder, repeat themselves, tries jokes, searches for support from the audience. They are drowning. You are standing still. The 3-second stare. The void technique is precise. It is not random silence. It is a deliberate presence. When attacked, maintain eye contact. Relax your face, say nothing. Hold still, not cold anger, not fake calm, just neutral observation. 3 seconds feels like eternity in social time. In those 3 seconds, the attacker questions themselves, the audience shifts. Attention, the power balance tilts. Silence plus eye contact equal to dominance. Not because it intimidates, but because it refuses submission. Why the void works on a biological level. Humans are social animals. We survive by reading feedback. Silence removes feedback. When someone cannot read you, their nervous system panics. Questions flood their mind. Did I go too far? Do I look stupid? Is this person judging me? Is the audience with me? Their cortisol rises. Your stillness amplifies it. The void weaponizes uncertainty. The audience factor shame is never one-on-one. It is always triangular. There is the attacker, the target, the audience. The attacker performs for the audience. When you stay silent, you shift the triangle. Now, the audience watches the attacker struggle. They see over-explaining nervous laughter aggression without justification. The attacker begins to look unstable. You look controlled. The crowd always follows control. Silence is not submission. Many people confuse silence with weakness because they were trained to speak to survive. In reality, begging is weakness. Explaining is weakness. Emotional urgency is weakness. Silence is refusal. Refusal to participate. Refusal to validate. Refusal to grant importance. And nothing enrages manipulators more than irrelevance. The difference between weak silence and powerful silence, weak silence, avoids eye contact, shrinks body language, signals fear, powerful. Silence holds posture, maintains eye contact, appears relaxed. The void only works when your body contradicts submission. Your stillness must say, I am not affected. Even if internally you feel discomfort, your external calm rewires the interaction. Over time, internal calm follows. Why silence forces confession here is a brutal truth. People reveal themselves when you stop reacting. In the absence of resistance, they overextend. They say too much. They show insecurity. They expose motives. Silence makes liars uncomfortable. Silence makes bullies sloppy. Silence makes narcissists desperate. They need validation like oxygen. You just removed it. The void against repeated attacks. Some attackers escalate. They try louder insults, personal jabs, mockery. This is a test. If you break, they win. If you hold, they collapse. Eventually, one of three things happens. They retreat. They embarrass themselves. They expose deep insecurity. All outcomes favor you. The internal requirement. The void cannot be faked long term. If you depend on approval, silence will feel unbearable. If you crave validation, silence will feel like death. That is why the void is not a tactic. It is a byproduct of internal sovereignty. You must reach a point where being misunderstood does not threaten you, being disliked does not control. You being judged does not move you. When you stop outsourcing your self-worth, silence becomes natural. The unspoken message of the void: when you deploy silence correctly, you communicate. One message: you are not significant enough to earn my response. That message lands harder than any insult. It cannot be argued with. It cannot be countered. It cannot be reframed. Because it is not spoken. Transition forward. Now you understand why reaction is defeat, why silence is power, but silence alone is not enough. There are moments when silence must evolve into frame inversion, where you don't just starve the attack, you flip the entire dynamic. In the next chapter, we will dismantle shame completely by turning the attacker into the subject. Psychological judo. And once you master it, shame will never land on you again. Chapter 4. Frame inversion, psychological judo. Silence collapses weak attackers. But some enemies adapt. Some people are shameless enough to keep pushing. They mistake your calm for permission. They interpret your silence as hesitation. That is when silence must evolve. That evolution is called frame inversion. What a frame really is: a frame is not words. A frame is who defines reality in an interaction. When someone shames you, they are not attacking you directly. They are imposing a frame. You are the problem. I am the judge. The audience is the jury. If you defend yourself, you accept the frame. If you explain, you accept the frame. If you argue, you accept the frame. You may win arguments inside a frame, but you lose power the moment you accept it. Frame inversion is not fighting back. It is changing who is on trial. Psychological judo explained. Judo does not resist force. It redirects it. Psychological judo does the same. Instead of blocking the attack, you let it pass and guide it into the attacker's own weakness. The goal is not humiliation. The goal is reversal. They came to expose you. They leave themselves exposed. Why this works on the human mind? Shamers rely on one thing: certainty. They need to appear confident, superior, and justified. Frame inversion injects doubt. When you calmly question their behavior, not their claim, you destabilize their certainty. and certainty is the backbone of dominance. Once it cracks, authority collapses. The golden rule of frame inversion: never address what they said. Always address why they said it. Content is irrelevant. Motivation is everything. The moment you analyze their behavior instead of defending yours, the power shifts. Core frame inversion techniques. 1. The concern frame: simple, calm, devastating. Are you okay? Not sarcastic, not mocking, genuine tone. This reframes the interaction from "I am under attack" to "you appear emotionally unstable." Now they must explain themselves. They are no longer the aggressor. They are the subject. 2. The observation frame: you describe behavior, not emotion. That was a strange thing to say out loud. You do not accuse. You do not insult. You observe. This frames them as socially unaware, and you were composed. The audience subconsciously agrees. 3. The clarification trap: ask them to repeat themselves. Say that again. Not angry, not loud. Most insults lose power when repeated. The attacker hears their own words again. Without momentum, they hesitate. They soften. They look foolish. The frame collapses. 4. The WHO frame: this is surgical. Who are you trying to impress right now? This exposes the performance. Suddenly, the audience becomes visible. The shamer realizes they've been seen. Performance dies when exposed. Why frame inversion terrifies manipulators? Manipulators thrive in emotional chaos. Frame inversion creates emotional clarity. You do not mirror their energy. You do not match their tone. You stay slow, measured, detached. This signals one thing: I am not inside this with you. They feel isolated. Isolation is panic. What not to do? Frame inversion fails when ego enters. Do not raise your voice, insult back. Get clever, over-explain. One sentence is enough. Power is brevity. The audience always decides. Remember this. You are not fighting the attacker. You are positioning yourself for the observers. The audience respects. Calm, control, precision. They distrust. Emotional outbursts, over-defense, desperation. Frame inversion wins silently. No applause. No cheers. Just quiet authority. Why most people cannot use this technique? Because it requires emotional detachment. If you need approval, you will rush to explain. If you fear rejection, you will overreact. Frame inversion demands inner stability. You must be willing to be misunderstood. Temporarily, to win permanently. The identity shift at this level: something changes. You stop seeing insults as threats. You start seeing them as information. Information about their insecurity, their need for dominance, their internal chaos. You are no longer reactive. You are diagnostic. That is power. When to combine silence and frame inversion: the most dangerous combination. Silence first, frame inversion second. Silence weakens. Frame inversion finishes. Used together, they dismantle the attacker psychologically without you ever becoming aggressive. The unspoken message: when you invert the frame, you say, "I see through you." And nothing frightens a manipulator more than being seen clearly. Transition forward. You now understand how silence removes oxygen, how frame inversion flips reality, but there is still one vulnerability left. Sometimes the attack is true. What happens when the insult hits a real flaw? That is where most people collapse. In the next chapter, you will learn how to become untouchable by owning your flaws before anyone can use them. The technique is called amused agreement, and once you master it, no insult will ever stick to you again. Chapter 5. Amused agreement: owning flaws. Silence weakens the attack. Frame inversion disarms it. But there is one final category of attack that defeats most people: the true insult. Not lies, not exaggerations, but something that is correct, a flaw, a weakness, a past failure. This is where most defenses collapse. This is where egos bleed. This is where shame finally sticks. Unless you understand the amused agreement. Why true insults hurt more than false ones. False insults are easy to dismiss. True ones hit identity. When someone exposes a real flaw, your mind panics. You rush to explain context, you justify, you soften the damage. And the moment you do that, you hand them power. Because power is not about truth. Power is about who is emotionally affected. The fatal mistake, trying to correct the record. Most people respond to true insults by saying, "That's not the whole story. You don't understand the context. It's more complicated than that." This response screams one thing: "This hurts me," and once pain is visible, the attack has succeeded. The core principle of amused agreement: you do not deny the flaw. You own it, calmly, lightly, almost playfully. You remove its emotional charge. You take their weapon and turn it into background noise. This is not a submission. This is dominance through indifference. Why agreement is more powerful than defense. Defending keeps the attack alive. Agreeing kills it instantly. Why? Because insults feed on resistance. When there is nothing to fight, the insult collapses. The attacker expected shame, anger, explanation. They receive calm acceptance, light amusement. Zero emotional reaction. Their script breaks. The psychology behind it: the human brain expects conflict. When expectations are violated, the brain freezes. Amused agreement creates a paradox. You agree, but you are not affected. This confuses the attacker and signals extreme internal confidence. The audience feels it instantly. How amused agreement sounds: short, simple, controlled. Examples: "Yeah, I've always been like that. That's fair. You're not wrong." But the tone matters more than words. No bitterness, no sarcasm, no explanation. Just calm ownership. The amplify variant: sometimes agreement alone is not enough. You agree and exaggerate. Slightly. "Oh, absolutely. I'm terrible at that," said with ease. Almost humor. This robs the insult of its seriousness. The attacker feels ridiculous for bringing it up. Why? This makes you untouchable once you own your flaws. No one can weaponize them. Shame requires secrecy. When you expose yourself voluntarily, there is nothing left to expose. You become Teflon. Insults slide off. The audience effect. Observers respect self-possession. They distrust defensiveness. When you agree without emotion, the audience subconsciously concludes, this person is comfortable with themselves. And comfort is power. What this is not: amused agreement is not self-deprecation, weak humor, apology. It is acceptance without shame. You are not lowering yourself. You are signaling that your worth is not threatened by imperfections. The inner requirement: this technique fails without inner work. If you secretly hate the flaw, your tone will betray you. Amused agreement requires self-acceptance, not love, not pride. Acceptance. Why narcissists hate this technique? Narcissists need leverage. They search for emotional hooks. When you remove emotional hooks, they feel powerless. They escalate. They overreach. They expose themselves. You stay still. They self-destruct. The final psychological shift at this level: something profound happens. You stop trying to protect your image. You start protecting your state. Your identity no longer lives in how others perceive you. It lives inside you. That is sovereignty. Combining the three layers now, you possess a complete defensive system. Silence removes oxygen frame inversion, flips power. Amused agreement removes ammunition. Together, they make you psychologically invincible. The unspoken message: when you agree calmly, you say, "I am not hiding from myself." And anyone who is not hiding cannot be controlled. Transition forward, but there is still one battlefield left. Shame is not only about the attacker, it is also about the audience, because shame is a performance. In the next chapter, you will learn how to dominate the room without speaking, by controlling how the audience aligns. The next chapter is called Winning the Audience, and once you master it, you will never lose a social encounter again. Chapter 6. Winning the Audience. Shame is never private. It is always a performance. There is always an audience, even if that audience is only one silent observer. And this is the truth most people never understand. You do not lose to the attacker. You lose to the audience. Why shame needs witnesses. An insult without witnesses has no power. A humiliation without eyes watching it dies instantly. Shame is a social weapon. It requires validation from others. The attacker is not trying to hurt you. They are trying to lower you in the social hierarchy in front of others. Once you understand this, you stop fighting the wrong enemy, the fatal error, focusing on the attacker. Most people lock eyes with the attacker. They argue. They defend. They explain. In doing so, they send one unconscious message: this person controls the narrative. The audience notices this immediately. And the moment the audience decides who is reacting and who is calm, power has already shifted. Power is a group decision. Status is not self-declared. It is granted. The audience decides who looks strong, who looks unstable, who looks in control. Your goal is not to defeat the attacker. Your goal is to win the silent jury. The rule of emotional gravity. People follow emotional gravity. They align with calm over chaos, stillness over noise, control over reaction. The person who is least emotionally invested automatically appears superior. This is why silence works. This is why frame inversion works. This is why amused agreement works. But now, we go further. The triangulation principle: never stay locked in a two-person conflict. That is a trap. Instead, introduce a third point: the audience. This is called triangulation. You subtly shift your attention away from the attacker and toward the observers. Not dramatically, not obviously, just enough. How triangulation works: when an insult is thrown, you pause. You remain calm. Then you briefly glance at someone else, make soft eye contact, slightly smirk or exhale. This does three things instantly. It breaks the attacker's dominance. It creates a shared moment with the audience. It isolates the attacker. The insult suddenly feels awkward, not powerful. Why this terrifies the attacker? The attacker expected engagement, resistance, emotional response. Instead, they feel exposed, ignored, socially misaligned. They realize something dangerous. I am no longer controlling the room. Panic begins. The audience's subconscious calculation. Observers ask themselves, who looks relaxed? Who looks reactive? Who seems secure? They side with stability. Always. This is human instinct. Silence plus triangulation equal to authority. Silence alone creates discomfort. Triangulation directs that discomfort. You are no longer defending yourself. You are judging the moment, and judgment is authority. The attacker's downward spiral. Once the audience shifts, the attacker talks, more explains, over-justifies, escalates. Each word lowers their status. Each reaction exposes insecurity. They destroy themselves. You do nothing. The power of minimal verbal response. If you speak at all, keep it surgical. One sentence. Flat tone. No emotion. Examples: that was an odd thing to say out loud. Are you okay? Then, silence. These statements are not insults. They are diagnoses. The audience feels it. Why mockery is dangerous. Never mock aggressively. Mockery signals emotional involvement. Your power comes from restraint. If humor is used, it must be light, almost accidental. Anything sharp gives the attacker relevance. The invisible hierarchy shift after this moment. Something irreversible happens. The room recalibrates. People stop seeing you as a participant and start seeing you as a reference point. Your words carry more weight. Your silence carries even more. The inner requirement again. This technique only works if you are internally grounded. If you crave approval, you will leak insecurity. If you fear rejection, your body language will betray you. Winning the audience requires one thing: you must not need them. Why this feels unfair but works: people expect justice. Social dynamics are not just, they are perceptual. The calm person wins, not the correct one. This is reality, and once you accept reality, you gain leverage over it. The complete public defense system at this point. You have mastered silence. Frame, inversion, amused, agreement, audience, control. You are no longer reacting. You are orchestrating. Transition forward, but there is a final escalation. What happens when the attacker does not stop? What happens when they feed on conflict and return again and again? There is one final method: cold, absolute, terminal. The next chapter is called active non-existence, and once you apply it, some people disappear from your life forever. Chapter 7. Active non-existence, the nuclear option. There comes a point where silence is not enough. There comes a point where calm, framing, and audience control have already worked, yet the attacker returns. Again and again, not to win, but to feed. This is where most people fail, because they believe every conflict must be resolved. That is a lie. Some conflicts must be erased. The difference between silence and erasure: silence is powerful, but silence still acknowledges existence. Active non-existence is different. It is not a silent treatment. It is not ignoring someone while secretly reacting inside. It is psychological deletion. You do not punish the attacker. You do not confront them. You do not resist them. You remove them from your reality. Why some people cannot be handled? There are people who thrive on friction. They escalate when ignored, intensify when calm is shown, return, because attention is their oxygen. These individuals are not seeking dominance. They are seeking regulation. Your reaction stabilizes their internal chaos, and when you deny that regulation, they panic. What active non-existence really is: active non-existence means no eye contact, no verbal acknowledgement, no body orientation, no emotional micro-reaction. You treat them as if they are not biologically present, not passive ignoring. Intentional erasure. Why this triggers primal panic: human beings are wired for social recognition. To be seen is to exist. To be ignored is uncomfortable. But to be treated as non-existent, that attacks the nervous system directly. The brain interprets this as, I am not real here. This triggers anxiety, anger, escalation, desperation. The attacker will try anything to re-enter your frame. The 3 stages of breakdown. When active non-existence is applied correctly, the attacker goes through stages. Stage 1, confusion. They repeat themselves louder. They move closer. They test boundaries. You remain unchanged. Stage 2, escalation. They provoke. They insult. They exaggerate. You remain unchanged. Stage 3, collapse. They expose themselves. They look unstable. They lose social support. You have done nothing. Why this works better than confrontation? Confrontation feeds identity. Non-existence starves it. You are no longer an opponent. You are a void. And the human psyche cannot tolerate a void. The discipline required this method is not easy. Your instincts will scream. Say something, defend yourself, correct the lie, resist. Every word gives them oxygen. Power is restraint. The social effect: observers notice something critical. You are not avoiding it. You are not afraid. You are indifferent. Indifference signals superiority. Fear avoids. Confidence is ignored. The difference between weak ignoring and sovereign erasure. Weak ignoring is reactive. It leaks emotion. Active non-existence is cold, neutral face, neutral body, neutral energy, no tension, no drama. When to use this method? This is not for every situation. This is for repeated humiliation attempts. Chronic disrespect, energy vampires, status leeches. Use it sparingly, but when used, use it fully. The aftermath: something important happens after active non-existence. You feel lighter, because you are no longer carrying someone else's instability. Your attention returns to you. Your nervous system resets. You reclaim psychological territory. The hidden rule of power. Power is not domination. Power is a choice. The ability to decide who exists in your mind, who deserves access to your attention, who is irrelevant. Most people give this power away unconsciously. You are taking it back deliberately. Why this ends cycles forever. Once someone realizes they cannot trigger you, engage you, affect You exist to you, they leave. Not always immediately, but inevitably, because there is nothing left to extract. Transition forward. At this stage, you have mastered external defense, but there is one remaining vulnerability: internal cracks. What if someone shames you with the truth? What if they touch a real flaw? The next chapter addresses this. It is not about silence. It is about owning your shadow. The next chapter is amused agreement, owning flaws without shame. And once you understand it, no one will ever have ammunition against you again. Chapter 8, amused agreement, owning flaws without shame. Up to this point, you have learned how to neutralize attacks from the outside. You learned silence. You learned erasure. You learned how to remove others from your psychological territory. But there is one remaining weakness that silence cannot solve: truth. What happens when the person attacking you is not lying? What happens when the insult lands because it touches something real? This is where most people collapse, not because of the insult, but because of internal conflict. Why truth hurts more than lies. A lie can be ignored. A lie can be erased. But truth creates friction inside. It triggers self-doubt, shame, the urge to explain, the urge to justify, the urge to defend your identity. This is where shaming becomes lethal. Because the attacker doesn't need creativity, they only need accuracy. The fatal mistake most people make: when someone points at a real flaw, people do one of three things: deny it, explain it, apologize for it. All three signal weakness. Why? Because they communicate, this flaw has power over me. And once someone knows where you are fragile, they will keep pressing the same wound. The core law: what you own cannot be used against you. Shame only works on what you reject in yourself. The moment you accept a flaw fully, it loses all power. This is not self-deprecation. This is sovereignty. What amused agreement really means: amused agreement is not sarcasm. It is not humor. It is not self-hate disguised as confidence. It is calm ownership without emotional charge. When someone attacks you with truth, you respond with agreement, indifference, subtle amusement, no tension, no defensiveness, no collapse. Why amusement is the key: anger signals pain. Sadness signals weakness. Amusement signals superiority. It says, this information does not threaten me. When you are amused, you flip the power dynamic instantly. The attacker expects shame, retraction, emotional reaction. They receive none. The psychological impact on the attacker: when you agree calmly with a real flaw, their script breaks, their momentum dies, their role disappears. They were prepared for resistance. They were not prepared for ownership. Example scenarios: internal mechanics. You're not as successful as you pretend. Weak response: no, that's not true. I'm working on things. Strong response: correct. I'm not where I want to be yet. No anger, no defense, no explanation. Just truth without submission. You talk too much. Weak response: I'm just passionate. Strong response: sometimes, yes, nothing more. The conversation ends. Why this creates psychological invincibility? Once you can own your flaws, shame has no leverage. Insults lose direction, attacks collapse mid-air because there is no internal fracture to exploit. The internal work required: this is non-negotiable. This method only works if you have done the internal work. You must face your insecurities, your failures, your contradictions, your unfinished identity, not publicly, privately. This is shadow integration. Why most people avoid this step? Because it is painful. It requires radical honesty, self-confrontation, letting go of ego armor. Most people prefer silence because silence hides wounds. Amused agreement exposes them and dissolves them. The difference between confidence and armor: armor is rigid. Armor cracks under pressure. Confidence is flexible. Confidence absorbs impact and remains unchanged. Amused agreement is confidence in motion. Social aftermath observers notice something subtle. You did not flinch. You did not defend. You did not explain. You acknowledged reality and stood tall. This creates respect, not sympathy. Why this ends? Repeated attacks. Attackers repeat what works. Once the truth fails to hurt you, they stop, because there is nothing left to extract. You are emotionally sealed. The final psychological shift at this stage, something changes inside you. You stop needing approval, protection, validation. Your identity becomes self-governed. And that leads to the final transformation. Transition to the final chapter. You have now mastered silence, erasure, ownership. There is only one thing left: building a core identity that cannot be manipulated, because it no longer seeks permission to exist. The final chapter is not about defense. It is about internal sovereignty. The final chapter is Chapter 9, Building the Internal Fortress. This is where power stops being a strategy and becomes a state of being. Chapter 9, Building the Internal Fortress. Up until now, everything you learned was about neutralizing external power. Silence removed attention. Non-reaction dissolved attacks. Frame inversion collapsed authority. Ownership erased shame. But there is one final truth that decides everything. If your power depends on technique, it can be taken away. True dominance does not come from tactics. It comes from structure. Why most people are still manipulable. Most people are not weak because they lack confidence. They are weak because they are internally divided. Inside them live multiple voices. One wants approval. One wants safety. One wants dominance. One wants comfort. One wants to be liked. When pressure comes, these voices argue. That hesitation is visible, and manipulators feed on hesitation. The nature of an internal fortress. An internal fortress means one authority, inside one command structure. One identity making decisions, no debate, no emotional vote, no external permission. You do not react, you decide. Why emotional people are easy to control. Emotion is not weakness. Unmanaged emotion is, when your emotions lead your actions, you can be provoked, you can be shamed, you can be baited, you can be redirected. The world doesn't need to defeat you, it only needs to trigger you. The sovereign mindset. A sovereign mind does not eliminate emotion. It places emotion below command. Emotion becomes information, not authority. You feel anger, you feel fear, you feel humiliation, but none of them decide. The internal hierarchy. Powerful individuals have an internal hierarchy. Principles, standards, strategy, emotion. Most people invert this order. That inversion is why they remain reactive, ending the need for validation. Validation is the final chain. As long as you need to be understood, to be liked, to be approved, to be acknowledged, you are governable. The internal fortress is built when you accept this truth. No one is required to agree with me for me to exist. Why silence feels heavy at first. When you stop explaining yourself, people misunderstand. You people project onto you. People feel uneasy that discomfort is a test. Most people fail it. They rush to correct the narrative. Powerful individuals let narratives collapse, becoming unreadable. Once your internal authority is solid, your face reveals. Less your words become fewer. Your reactions disappear not as a performance. As a byproduct, people cannot predict you, and what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. The end of psychological leverage. Shame no longer works. Insults fall flat. Provocation dies instantly. Because there is nothing inside you that needs rescue. You are already aligned. The final shift at this stage, something subtle but permanent happens. You stop asking, what should I do? You start asking, what aligns with my structure? This is not arrogance. This is an internal order. Why this is rare? Most people never reach this stage, not because it's complex, but because it is lonely. There is no applause here, no validation, no reassurance, only self-command. What the world sees someone who doesn't explain, doesn't react, doesn't seek approval, doesn't fight unnecessarily. They call it calm. They call it confidence. They don't realize it's something deeper. It's self-rule. Transition to closing. You are no longer learning how to fight. You are learning how to stand. And when a man stands without needing permission, the world adjusts around him. This is where the book ends, but the identity begins, becoming unmanipulable. You didn't come this far to learn tricks. You didn't sit through this book to memorize tactics. You came here because somewhere inside you, something already knew the truth, that the world is not fair. That power is not given, and that explanation is rarely protection. What you've learned here is not how to fight shame. It is how to outgrow it. At the beginning, shame looked like an external attack. A comment, a look, a joke, a sentence thrown casually in public. But now you understand what shame really is. It is not words. It is permission. Permission you never consciously gave, but were trained to offer automatically. This book was never about silencing others. It was about ending the reflex to defend yourself. Most people spend their lives negotiating their worth, explaining who they are, clarifying what they meant, correcting how they were perceived. They live in constant response mode. That is not life. That is psychological servitude. You have now seen the structure behind humiliation, how reaction feeds dominance, how silence collapses authority, how frames decide winners before words are spoken, how audiences matter more than attackers, and finally, how inner alignment makes all of it irrelevant. The moment you stop reacting, something unsettling happens to the world. It loses leverage. People who rely on shame panic when it stops working. They escalate. They repeat themselves. They grow louder, not because you are weak, but because their script has failed. This is the moment most people break. They feel the pressure to explain, to soften, to justify, to reassure. You don't, because you are no longer trying to be understood. You are anchored. Power does not announce itself. It does not argue. It does not correct misunderstandings. It does not chase clarity. It stands and let confusion burn itself out. At this stage, silence is no longer a tactic. It is a signal that says, I am not available for this game. And when you are no longer available, games end. The final truth is this: you cannot be shamed once there is nothing inside you that needs to be protected. When your flaws are owned, insults become noise. When your identity is stable, labels lose their grip. When your self-worth is internal, the crowd loses power. This is why becoming unmanipulable feels lonely. There is no applause here, no validation, no reassurance, only self-command. But this loneliness is not emptiness. It is freedom. From this point forward, you will speak less and be heard more. You will explain less and be respected more. You will react less and control more. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are finished negotiating. And now, before you move forward, understand this. This book did not give you power. It removed what was blocking it. The need to be liked, the need to be understood. They need to be safe at every moment. Those needs were never protection. They were chains. If this work resonated with you, it's not because you learned something new. It's because you recognized something old, something buried, something you were always capable of becoming. And if you choose to continue this journey, not as entertainment, but as transformation, then stay connected. Not because you support a channel, but because this is a place where weak psychology is dismantled and disciplined minds are built. Join us, not as a follower, as a man who no longer asks permission to stand.